man, or one of the men behind the heckling, Alex O'Brien. Alex, thanks so much for your time. As Laura Jay's here from Sky News, I really appreciate you talking to us this morning. Tell me, what prompted you to be down there today? And you weren't alone, were you?
No, we weren't. And look, we heard the Prime Minister was coming down, and for almost over a year now, our community has been calling out for a re-engagement with the community in regard to this project, and it's fallen on deaf ears. We've got an inquiry at the moment in the Senate that is being roadblocked by the Greens and Labor senators, and it's been over 6 months now that we've been waiting, and they're trying to bury it. That's our feeling. So we've come here today to ask questions to the Prime Minister. And he's failed to, answer those questions for us today. Alex,
just give me an idea, because I can sense your frustration. How have you tried to make your case heard? Had you approached Stephen Jones and he'd not responded to you? Had you made other approaches to other MPs and just been ignored?
Yeah, look, we've reached out to Minister Bowen a couple of times as well, and we haven't heard back. And also, our members in our community have reached out several times to our local MPs. But we have also been campaigning and very vocal for over a year now that we want those community consultations to be restarted. And again, we've heard nothing, from the Labor Party.
So what is it that you're particularly concerned about? Is it the offshore wind farm, or is it the entirety of the renewables plan that will affect, and how that will affect the seat of Whitlam and the Illawarra?
Yeah. Look, our complete focus is the offshore wind project. It doesn't stack up. 7 developers have left. It's costly. There's a huge cost to the taxpayer that our engineers predict is $5 billion a year. And it's the environmental impact. 65% of the community down here said no to the offshore wind project. There is supposed to be something called social licence. The Illawarra has rejected that. So what more can this community do? We've held rallies, we've held events, we've had petitions signed in the thousands, and this community continues to be ignored. We're not climate deniers. We have real concerns, and they're not being listened to.
Okay, so when you say 65% of the community was opposed to this wind farm, how did you measure that?
So basically, through the consultation process, there are an opportunity for community to make submissions into their thoughts on the offshore wind project, and that is a very critical component of approving a offshore wind zone. And the Minister Bowen is supposed to take into those considerations before declaring a zone or not. And this community feels that, we had 65% that opposed, 77% of those submissions actually cited the environment being the number one issue. They want to run cables through Killalea National Park, transmission lines, and also through Lake Illawarra. These are protected areas, and that's why this community has so significantly opposed this project on those grounds.
We know the Coalition has a different plan as to what our energy mix should look like. Part of that is nuclear. It would still have some renewables. Can you tell me whether you agree with the Coalition's plan? Have you spoken to anyone on the other side of politics about how their plan would specifically affect the Illawarra? Would they go ahead with this?
Yeah. Look, we've talked to all sides of the political spectrum on this issue.
Do you like any of them, Alex?
And look, nuclear energy. Look, we do. Look, we want candidates that are opposed to offshore wind, and we'll let the community determine how they back up certain candidates on their other policies. But offshore wind, we need to be very clear. But look, nuclear needs to be on the table. If you look at BlueScope here, who this project, our local Labor MP, Alison Burns, indicated that 2/3 of the energy from the original project, or 200 turbines, would produce the energy for BlueScope to produce green steel through green hydrogen. And guess what? BlueScope Steel are now saying that green hydrogen is decades away. It's interesting when you look at BlueScope's North American operations, which are more profitable. Guess what? They've signed up to nuclear. So if we want, steel manufacturing in this country, we need cheap, reliable energy. And you're not going to get that from the most expensive form of renewable energy, which is floating offshore wind, and green hydrogen that is not going to be feasible for decades. So we need a bit of common sense with the energy plan. and that is what this community is asking for.
Alex, I can almost hear some on the left of politics digging into your background right now, trying to find previous links to other political parties that would oppose them, which they will no doubt come out. So that was my next question. So we might as well just get it all on the table now. Who are you? What is your background? Do you have any ties to these opposing political parties? Do you have an ulterior motive, Alex?
I don't. We are a proper grassroots community. I will sign any affidavit to that, to attest to that. This is pure grassroots. What we're concerned about is that the project doesn't stack up on a number of reasons. I work in wealth management. I see greenwashing. I see developers take control. I see the charlatans out there. And this project has everything that we see that will make a lot of money for overseas developers, and it will destroy this community and local jobs. This is not a good policy for the Illawarra. Alex,
what do you think is going to happen at the election? I know you're not an authority on polling, but just give us an idea of what you've seen. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people come up to you that already agree with you, but what's the sentiment?
Well, look, Laura, we have people within the Labor Party, within the Greens, who are also telling us that this energy policy doesn't stack up. So when you've got people across the political spectrum, we know energy is going to be a big issue, but you know, energy feeds into cost of living. We know cost of living is a huge issue. You know, I've got a young family. I know what it's like. I've got a good job, but it's still expensive to raise a family. You know, if you look at the food prices and energy, you've got the Business Council also coming out and saying the energy is too expensive in this country. So we've got to put the politics aside. We need independent energy panels, and we need to think about the future of kids like my daughter. And this is why I'm fighting. This is why I'm here, because I cannot stomach the fact that for future generations we're going to be stuck with subsidising uneconomical energy projects that are based on ideology rather than what's good for this country.
Alex, why aren't you running? Why aren't you running for Parliament?
Look, I've been asked that question, but I've got a good job, so I get paid well and I don't have to deal with all the political mess that happens behind the scenes. That's the truth of the matter.
Well, Alex, we thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Just one more message to the PM. I think he got the message loud and clear, by the way. But if you could speak to him behind closed doors, one-on-one, is that what you want to do? What's your aim from today?
Look, we would, but we want, you know, the Prime Minister to realise how he's hurting traditional Labor areas. You know, he's forgotten who they are. Are you a Labor voter? He's forgotten the workers. Sorry?
Have you ever voted Labor?
I did live in Albanese's electorate, and I lived in Albanese's electorate, and I did vote for him. So, you know, I'll put it out there. I voted across the spectrum. But again, you know, the political party, the machine that is Labor, has gone to, you know, consider inner city policies, and they've forgotten the regional, traditional Labor voters.
So you used to live in Albanese's electorate in the city, but then you moved south.
I did.
Wow.
Yes,
and you voted for him. Why?
Yes, I did.
That relationship's gone sour. I mean, it was pretty clear what they were going to do with renewables, wasn't it?
Well, it was, but when you're living in that bubble of the inner city, you don't realise the damage that political parties, you know, throw onto those communities. And so when you're living there, and we made a lifestyle choice to move out of the city, raise a family near the beach, in as much as in nature as possible, and then you really see the underinvestment. You see the tactics that they employ to bulldoze these communities with projects that aren't suitable for them. You know, that costs, you know, jobs. We talked to one of the fishing groups down here that employs 70 people. They're worried about long-term staff, low-skilled labour, not being able to put food on the table, millions of dollars lost in new boats that have been, you know, invested in over the years. So there are real people hurting. Tourism is a big part of the new Illawarra. You know, we saw when the steelworks closed down and employed 40,000 a couple of decades ago to only 3,000 today. Tourism services was a big part of that revitalisation of the Illawarra. And now they're putting this project project to bring the Illawarra back to the industrial past. We don't want it. We're happy with the hard work that the Illawarra has done over the years to look to the future, and that is why we're here fighting to protect it. And we're hoping the Prime Minister takes a moment, takes a breath and just listens to the community, not just ours, but around the country.
I suspect you're not going to vote for Labor this time around.
I don't really want to reveal, but it's looking unlikely, Laura.
Yeah, I would say
unless,
so, Alex.
Unless they change their policy.